Hi there everybody, this is Barrister Zahid Jameel again with another segment related to IT laws and things that basically you as users etc. of the internet can do when encountering certain issues which are legally sort of entangled. So move on today to the topic we have at hand, that is the topic of harassment over the internet. Some people call it bullying, some people will refer to it as in Pakistan we have cyber stalking. In one of the ordinances we put out, Section 13 of the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Ordinance 2007 and then 2008 and then 2009, which is not enforced at the moment, basically created an offense which was related to cyber stalking. It was not a very well drafted section, frankly speaking, because although it tried to address, or at least we think it tried to address, the issue of harassment and intimidation towards individuals, especially ladies, it did not do that effectively. It was too expansive, it was open to abuse, and frankly speaking, it was probably redundant considering the laws that already exist on the statute books that could have been used by anybody who wishes to file a complaint. So let's take an example of something that recently has happened. In the Sindh High Court, a constitutional petition was filed by a father in relation to some sort of abuse that has taken place with regard to his daughter's pictures being put up on certain platforms. And that petition was filed, and the court basically ordered that that content should be taken off immediately. Criminal cases probably should be lodged against those responsible, etc. And the issue was whether or not a FIR, a First Information Report, should be lodged, etc. That gives you an idea of how seriously now the courts are even taking this and are aware of the issues. Whether they know the technical aspects or what from a policy perspective would be better or not better, or what other sections can be applied is another question. So let's look at what could possibly be done with the existing law, which I, in my view, think is sufficient. And let's look at what exists in the Pakistan Penal Code, which relates to such issues of harassment, intimidation, annoyance, and others. There's a specific chapter, if you look at chapter 22 of the Pakistan Penal Code, which deals with criminal intimidation, insult, and annoyance. And I'm going to go through some of these sections and try to basically inform you about the different things that you could take to court, you could file an FIR in regards, or you, the person who's actually perpetrating any of these, needs to be careful of. So let's start with the first one. There's a section 503 of the Pakistan Penal Code, which deals generally with the concept of criminal intimidation. So it's about basically if you try to threaten or intimidate somebody in a certain form, and I'll explain exactly what sort of forms, then you could be committing a criminal offense. Before we get to this, let's first think about the fact that if these were offenses that were created in the 1900s, would this then apply to electronic communications, say on SMSs or emails, or just basically stuff that you see on instant message or online? Would it or would it not? It does. The Electronic Transactions Ordinance basically recognizes anything that is done electronically, had it been, and equates it to anything that would have been done in written form. So basically anything you put up on the internet, you SMS, or you basically write in your email, is equivalent of the written form because of the Electronic Transactions Ordinance section 453 as well. So beware that just because these are old sections doesn't mean that they would not apply in the electronic or cyber environment. There's a second limb to this as well, which is to the person or reputation of anyone in whom that person is interested. So it's not necessarily relating just to the person who is actually being attacked, but if I'm interested as, for instance, my mother, my wife, my children, or anybody else who I might have an interest in, if they are attacked, I can basically lodge an FIR in that respect as well. So the illustration given under section 503, for instance, is very simple. It says, for instance, if a deceased person's reputation is impacted or threatened, then the persons who have an interest in that deceased person could also bring an action under criminal law. So it's fairly well drafted, it's quite expansive to the extent that it allows various other people, third parties, to also take up the issue and not just the person affected directly. So even a person who's passed away, whose reputation may be threatened, his children, his family, anybody who's interested in him could actually lodge an FIR. So for those who think that they can go around basically creating disrepute in regards to people who have passed away, beware. Whether you do this on writing, whether you do this through oral means, whether you do this through electronic means, it is an offense under the Pakistan Penal Code. The maximum penalty would be 2 years imprisonment. Let's move on to the next one, section 504. This deals with intentional insult with intent to provoke the breach of peace. Now, this will only apply if supposing something you do on the internet, any harassment, etc., leads somebody to breach peace, or to, by the way, remember there are certain words here, it says, commit any other offense. So if you do something, you insult someone by which the other person is caused to commit another sort of criminal offense, that would also be something that, again, 2 years maximum imprisonment could be a liability that you have to suffer. The next one is fairly useful, which is section 505 of the Pakistan Penal Code. This deals with statements conducing which lead to public mischief. So if anybody makes, publishes, or circulates any statement, rumor, or report which is intended to incite or creates an incitement towards any officer, soldier, or airman, or army, navy, etc., basically to the military, that would be an offense. Whoever basically issues such a statement, rumor, or report which is likely to, remember the words are likely to cause fear or alarm to the public or any segment of the public, then that would again also be an offense under section 505, or it can, if it affects public tranquility. And then there's another aspect, and I think this becomes much more relevant in recent times, stuff that we've seen on the internet, which is that if any statement, rumor, or report incites or is likely to incite any class or community of persons to commit any offense against another class or community of individuals, then, or people, or groups, then that would also be considered a criminal offense. Now, for these ones under section 505, the maximum penalty is 7 years imprisonment. It's a very serious offense. And so to give you an example, if you were to go out there and start creating incitement against any minorities, any particular religion, try to ridicule, insult, or create rumors which are not true with regard to certain religions, castes, sects, or any segment of the community, that would be a criminal offense. Now, if you did that electronically under the Electronic Transaction Ordinance, that would still be covered by section 505 of the Pakistan Penal Code. We're moving on to the next one. This is to do with criminal intimidation by anonymous communication. This is the sort of stuff we get all the time. If somebody receives an SMS, they have no idea who this person is. They receive an email which is spoofed, or they don't know who this person is, and you're basically trying to track this person down. Well, you don't necessarily have to know who did it. Obviously, you'd like to know because then you want to bring him before the court, etc., or get him imprisoned. But you can still lodge a criminal FIR against an anonymous person, because the offense of 507 of the Pakistan Penal Code states that criminal intimidation by an anonymous communication, whoever commits the offense of criminal intimidation, which is 506, criminal intimidation by an anonymous communication, or having taken precaution to conceal the name or abode of the person from whom the threat comes, shall be punished with imprisonment up to a maximum of 2 years. So if you're trying to basically conduct criminal intimidation, but you're doing it anonymously, or you've done something to try and conceal who you are or where you live or things of that nature, then that would be an additional 2 years to the offense of criminal intimidation. So that would basically be the same as anybody sending instant messenger messages over the internet, putting up messages through, let's say, circulating them through email, putting them up on lists, or even sending SMSs, and that would still be covered under 507 of the Pakistan Penal Code. The other is an interesting section. I think many people may not have realized that this does exist, which is the act caused by inducing person to believe that he will be rendered the object of divine displeasure. So if anybody does something or says something to try and make somebody, the other person, do something or not do something, by telling him that if he does or does not do it, then he will be the subject of divine displeasure. So if you're a Hindu, any of the gods of the Hindus, if you're a Muslim, by Allah, if you're Christian, by Jesus, or any of those sort of situations, then or any divine displeasure. For instance, we receive emails all the day that if you don't send this forward, then God will be upset with you. That would be an offense that would come under 508 of the Pakistan Penal Code. The maximum penalty here, again, is basically 1 year with fine.